Alright, before the video starts, I just want to correct something that I'm going to end up mentioning in the video. And that is a cryo damage buff from Ganyu going over to Raiden Shogun. Raiden Shogun and any other characters that don't deal cryo damage won't actually get that buff because obviously they deal 0 cryo damage. The same thing happens in Honky Impact when you get like a fire damage buff for a physical damage only unit. They'll deal 0 fire damage because, newsflash, they deal 0 fire damage. I'm also going to have this correction in the Ganyu video, so yeah, I just don't feel like re-recording these again. So, yeah. With that being said, on to the video. Hey guys, welcome back to the BS Society. And before you ask, yes, I'm recording pretty much all 4 of these videos in the same sitting. Anyways, let's go on to Raiden Shogun. So obviously, Raiden Shogun is probably one of the most controversial characters as of this update, basically. Because she's pretty much another Archon unit that people just don't like when she was released. Now, like Zhongli, the reason why I won't make a video on him is because he was basically fixed after his backlash, which I'm going to agree with Tectone. He's kind of overpowered now. I might try to find what his original kit was to see if he actually worked properly, but yeah. So, Raiden Shogun, again, normal charge attack is whatever. Okay. Now, this ability right here, I think is really where Raiden Shogun and Beidou can kind of synergize off each other. Because I think this ability and Beidou's ability can actually work with each other. Okay? Now, what this does is basically, you know that eye that appears over your head? This eye, right? Now, whenever you attack an enemy, basically this eye every 0.9 seconds will basically send an attack out to attack enemies. Okay? Now, that's all fine and dandy, and characters who gain this eye will have their elemental burst damage increased based on the energy cost of the elemental burst during the eye's duration. What this means is I think you're actually supposed to use Shogun and Beidou together. Because if you use Beidou's ultimate and then you use this ability, what basically happens is Beidou's ability would get a massive amount of elemental burst damage increase because of how much energy it costs. Now, it's this little statement right here that kind of pisses me off. Okay, and this one is probably a bigger controversy than the ultimate, okay? So, it activates every 0.9 seconds, basically the same thing as Beidou's ability that activates every 1 second, okay? Now, the problem is coordinated attacks generated by characters not controlled by you deal 20% of the normal damage. Now, the way I read this is basically saying that if you're playing in co-op, say a 4-player co-op, you're using Raiden Shogun and you use this ability, and the ability gets activated by other units, it's only going to deal 20% of the original attack damage. Okay, which means that 117%, let's just make it 100 for a second, would be cut down to 20%. Why? That makes no sense, Mahoyo. That right there is something that could be fixed. That right there is something that can be fixed. I would understand people getting mad at that. Now, what people are really mad at is this down here. Okay, this ability. Also, real quick, yeah, so that just increases electric terms. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing anything there. So, when Raiden Shogun unleashes her ultimate, she deals a little bit of AoE electric damage, and then she gets these buffs down here. So her normal charge and plunging attacks get infused with electro damage, and these cannot be overridden. Okay? Which I would say is kind of dumb, because the way I read this is that, say if you use somebody like Ganyu, who basically provides like a 20% cryo damage buff. The way I see this is that Raiden Shogun wouldn't get that buff because it can't be overridden. Her electric damage can't be overridden. Now, that's not entirely bad, because obviously there's going to be additional cryo damage on the field, and she can take advantage of that. I would say Raiden Shogun would probably be able to synergize better with units like Venti or Yoimiya, because that AoE pyro damage from Yoimiya's ultimate is coming from her, not as a 20% AoE cryo buff or a 20% AoE pyro buff, right? Now, one good thing about this ability, though, is that she does get electric charge immunity, which means if you're fighting some annoying enemies that are, like Hydro and Electro, so you're getting hit with electro charge, this is a very good ability to use, so that way you can kind of get past that annoyance. So, I mean, she does have a really good use, because fighting some of those Fatui Cheetons or whatever they are, especially right next to water, I've gotten killed a few times because you get hit by Hydro and Electro, and your units just get stunned. You don't see this from enemies, but for you just get stunned. And it's annoying. Alright? Now, this right here is really where people kind of have a lot of controversy with Raiden Shogun. And MiHoYo has stated that Raiden Shogun and Beidou, they work as intended. This ability works as intended, okay? And I'll get to what they said in a minute, okay? So basically it says, while the ability is active, the Raiden Shogun's normal charge and plunging attack will be considered elemental burst damage. Now, I think to clear up the controversy around Raiden Shogun, they need to change the wording a little bit. Because the way the players see this worded is that... Okay, first of all, the way that MiHoYo basically stated how she works is that the normal attack animations, so this, you see these normal attack animations when the ability is activated, but they're not normal attack animations, right? Or they're normal attack animations, but they're not normal attacks. They're elemental burst attacks, right? Now, the way the community sees it, when you look at Beidou's ability, right, it says that when normal and charge attacks hit, they create a lightning discharge. Now, that's when normal and charge attacks hit. It doesn't say anything about normal and charge attack damage or elemental burst damage, right? So the community is basically saying, well, this should work together. What MiHoYo is saying is that while Raiden Shogun's attacks are still normal animations, they're not dealing normal and charge attack damage. Which again, the community is like, but it's not saying on damage, it's saying on hits. And this is where MiHoYo can clear up the language a little bit and basically add in the ability section, right? Just add another line of text right here that says the normal charge and plunging attacks will be considered elemental burst damage and elemental burst hits. So that way the community would no longer be confused, because now they're considered elemental burst hits. That's what MiHoYo is saying, is that not only does this ability turn normal and charge attacks into elemental burst damage, but they also get turned into elemental burst hits, not normal and charged hits. Okay? And, I understand where the community is getting their confusion from, but that's kind of how I see it, and that is why I say MiHoYo is correct. Raiden Shogun and Beidou do work as intended. Now, does this mean that Raiden Shogun and Beidou can't be used together? Certainly not. There is actually a very, very viable rotation that can be used here. So what you do is you use Beidou's ultimate. Okay, now keep in mind, okay, Beidou requires a lot of energy to use her ultimate. 80 energy. Okay? Now, we scroll back up to Raiden Shogun's second ability, and you see that elemental burst damage gets increased. So what you do is you use this second ability, and then you use Beidou's ability. Because not only will the extra attack from this be used, but then you'll also get the extra attack from Beidou being used. And her elemental buff would be increased. And then when Beidou's ability runs out, then you use Raiden Shogun's ultimate. Because, guess what? If you go down here, it says that energy can be restored. Or, when such attacks hit opponents, when her normal charge and plunging attacks hit opponents, she regenerates energy for all the nearby party members. And energy can be restored this way once every second, and it can be done 5 times throughout the duration. Which means you can use Raiden Shogun to recharge Beidou's ability. Okay, and then you can just rinse and repeat. So there's a really, really good synergy going on between Raiden Shogun and Beidou that players just don't seem to understand. And trust me, it took me a lot of studying and a lot of redoing this recording to actually understand that, oh my god, Beidou and Shogun actually work pretty good together. It's just that players, again, don't study the characters. And to be honest, you don't even have to use them together to understand this. Now, in a minute, you're going to see a little bit of gameplay. Okay? And I'm not going to talk over this or anything. But basically what I'm going to do is basically use this ability and then Beidou's ultimate. Okay? And actually, I think I used Beidou's ultimate first. I can't really remember which way I do it. But basically what I'm going to do is use this ability and Beidou's ultimate so that way you can see that the two abilities are indeed going off. And then I'm going to use Raiden Shogun's ultimate ability to show you why it doesn't really work together. Okay, now I may actually re-redo that recording as well since I've had to redo this one. But yeah, that's basically what I intend on doing. So, I'm not going to speak on it after that. I just want you to see how they synergize. And, basically, again, keep in mind that you have to look at how your characters work properly. So that way you can fully understand how they work. Because now that I've studied Raiden Shogun and Beidou a little bit more and their interactions between each other, they are actually really good. Because Raiden Shogun can help recharge Beidou's really, really long recharge time. And then you use her second ability and Beidou's ability, and then you can switch over to somebody like Yoimiya and get massive amounts of damage out over time. Okay, and keep in mind, this ability right here and Beidou's ability can remain out without having them on the field, which makes them a support DPS. Both of those abilities are support. Pretty awesome. Actually, I'm pretty sure you can have Beidou's ability out without having to... yeah, you can have her out, because unless it says it, the ability will remain active. So, yeah, pretty awesome. Anyways, with that being said, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.
見切りました。よく見ておけ。はっ、て、はっ、はっ、はっ、と、はっ、ふん。裁きの雷。ここより弱滅の時。はっ、ふっ、せ、ふん。と、はっ、ふん。て、ふっ。逃げ道はありません。炭になるがいい。やっ。やっ。て。 りすなわち永遠なり見切りました。たてやてたてたてとふんてふははてたはそこふたせふんし
What have you done? I saw that! Those poor ducks! It was for the pigeons. Go away! I never want to see you again! Ever! I'm telling Mommy!